Mr. Lewis. Good afternoon, Mr. Lewis.
How you doing, ma'am?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. Would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and DOC number.
Robert Earl Lewis Jr., 98335.
And let's see, Mr. Lewis, do you have counsel here today?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, we're ready for Mr. Lewis. Oh my goodness, we're getting some feedback. Yeah, Mr. Lewis.
Yes, ma'am.
If somebody has their YouTube on, you need to turn the YouTube playing off, please. And mute your microphone until you're addressed.
All right, so would counsel please introduce yourself for the record? We didn't get it. Is it Mr. Hamilton? Mr. Hamilton?
Your Honor, Julie Mudd on behalf of Mr. Lewis.
I'm sorry, what was it? Julie?
Yes, yes, Madam Chairman, Julie Mudd for Robert Lewis.
Okay, thank you. And we still have somebody, it appears, with their YouTube on. If you could turn that off and then mute your microphone until it's your turn to speak. So let me acknowledge the folks who have joined us today. In opposition, we have a representative from the DA's office, Mr. Clark, who will be speaking at the appropriate time. In support, we have the Parole Project, Veronica Lewis, Latasha King, and Mr. John Tubbs. And at the appropriate time, we'll allow those who've indicated they'd like to speak to do so. First, Mr. Lewis, let me read some identifying information, then I will turn it over to Mr. Roche. Your case has been assigned to him this afternoon. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Mr. Lewis, you're here seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in December 1997 as a habitual offender to a life sentence on a first-degree robbery conviction in the 22nd Judicial District, St. Tammany Parish. Is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Lewis. How are you?
How you doing, sir? Good.
Good, thank you. Madam Chairman, fellow board members, we have Robert E. Lewis, DOC number 98335. Mr. Lewis is here today seeking a recommendation for a commutation of sentence for a 1997 conviction for first-degree robbery. The original charge was armed robbery. On September 24th, 1997, a jury of his peers convicted him of a lesser charge of first-degree robbery by a vote of 12-0. Just a side note, right prior to the jury delivering their decision, they asked the bailiff to communicate with the judge, and they wanted the judge to read the 3 different verdicts: armed robbery, first-degree robbery, and not guilty. And after the judge read the 3 different verdicts and the implications and the specifications, they retired for another 10 minutes and came up with the verdict of first-degree robbery. Is that how you remember,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Lewis?
Yes, sir.
And let's see, the DA's office After that, filed a multi-bill after the conviction, and on December 16th, 1997, some 3 months later, the judge found Mr. Lewis guilty as an habitual offender and sentenced him to life at DOC and hard labor without benefit of probation, parole, or suspension in sentence. The multi-bill was based on 2 previous felony convictions and over 23 prior adult arrests for burglary, theft, possession of stolen things, simple robbery, and armed robbery. The only violent crime that fit the description of violent crime is the armed robbery. And he was not convicted of armed robbery, he was convicted of first-degree robbery. The victim in this offense was not injured during the process of this offense. This is Mr. Lewis's second clemency hearing. The first hearing was held on February 8th, 2017. He was denied by a vote of 3 members granting and 2 members denying. Is that the way you remember it, Mr. Lewis?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lewis is currently 62 years old. He was 36 at the time of the robbery. And Mr. Lewis has been incarcerated for 26.5 years. Mr. Lewis, in his current clemency application, he gave a completely different version of the events of November 6, 1996, than the official police report. So I'm going to give you a chance today to tell us exactly what happened on November 6, 1996, because your version of the events differ drastically from the police report. So tell us exactly what happened.
On November 6th, I was riding through this town, me and a friend, and I was flagged down by Stephon James, the victim, supposed victim. And I was selling drugs. So he asked me, did I have any for sale? And I told him yes. And I sold him some drugs and got ready to pull off. He told me to give him a ride. And he got in my vehicle. I gave him a ride to a store. He wanted to go to a store. So I took him to the store. And in the process of him going to the store, he said he was going to go in there and make a hustle, steal some alcohol or something out the store. And he went in the store and he come back out. He didn't have the alcohol. So I told him, I said, well, man, look, let me show you how to do it. And so I walked in the store with him. And after we got in the store, I had on a little muscle t-shirt. After we got in the store, I seen it wasn't going to be as easy as I thought it, as I was telling him it was going to be. So I told him to give me his coat. Let me wear his coat. And I just he gave me his jacket, and I grabbed 2/5 of alcohol, and I walked out the door. Next thing I know, we back at where I picked him up at, and the police pull up behind us at the store, at the gas station, before we got to his residence. And I told him, I said, well, man, I still got drugs on me. I said, bro, so I'm going to jump out this car and run. And that's what I did.
You actually went in and you robbed the store.
I robbed him. Yes, sir. Stole some alcohol, sir. There wasn't no robbery in the store, the stealing of alcohol. But I take full responsibility of my action, and I'm very remorseful. I'm sorry that it happened, and that's just what happened.
The person that you sold the drugs to prosecuted in this case?
Beg your pardon, sir?
Was the person that you sold the drugs to prosecuted in this case? Was he arrested?
I don't know, sir. I don't know. He told me he had ran too. I don't really know. I don't know.
Our position in this case comes from the 22nd JDC District Attorney's Office, the St. Tammany Sheriff's Office. The victims were notified by letter. They received telephone calls. The victim of this crime did not respond to any of our inquiries. Therefore, there is no comment from the victim or no opinion whether he is opposed or unopposed to the clemency process. Mr. Lewis's current job, what is your current job assignment, Mr. Lewis?
My current job,
Yes.
I drive supply truck for the camp that I'm in, Camp F, trustee camp. I deliver food to the camp and vegetables, whatever they need done around the camp. I basically do it in the truck or however, you know.
Yeah, where do you get the supplies from?
They got warehouses all over the prison that, you know, like they got a food warehouse, canteen warehouse, wherever they send me to go, it's all done in the prison.
You actually drive a truck, going to the warehouses and bringing food back to your particular camp.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So drive a truck and then go, that's a trustworthy position, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How long have you been delivering food to your camp?
About 3 years.
And what did you do before that?
I was a general at Arley. I worked at the training academy. And just mostly general Arley work and maintenance.
But you worked at the training academy.
Yes, sir.
How long did you work at the academy?
Shoot. About 1 minute. I worked about 5 years there altogether. About 5 years.
Are you a trustee?
Yes, sir.
What level?
8.
How long have you been a class A trustee?
Wow. I think
That's all right. One name will tell me when I get to one name. Okay, let's go. Let's continue. Have you acquired any vocational skills or training while incarcerated?
vocational, no, sir.
Culinary arts, welding, anything?
Well, I was in a welding school. I stayed in there about 3 months. I didn't get a chance to get my diploma, nothing in it, so I don't really count that.
So why did you get out the welding?
To be honest with you, they had passed a law. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they had passed a law, and if you was in school, they would give you so much credit for good time and stuff like that. And so when they come around telling us that they was gonna give us credit for good time, but it didn't apply to me because I was a third offender. I was multi-bill, and I just got discouraged and got out. Wasn't thinking I should have got that trade.
Mr. Lewis, whether you got time or not, It was for your benefit. It was
So
for
I-
your enhance to finish each and every program that you enrolled in.
So you're right. I agree with you. Now I know better. I was young then, just didn't know no better. I agree with you today, though. You 100% right.
Time is secondary to acquiring a skill. Any organizational participation,
Sir?
do you belong to any organizations or clubs?
Yes, sir. The community, community club, Jam Club, what the name of the club? Camp C, Music Club.
Concept- Is it Camp C, a concept club?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any community involvement,
In the community, yes, sir.
community service involvement.
Yes, sir. I do everything around the camp to try to help the community. We put on sports activities for the camp around the community and basically anything that they doing in the camp and they need some help or support, I'll be there helping them, supporting them.
So let's talk about substance abuse. Have you ever abused drugs or alcohol?
Yes, sir. Drugs.
Okay, and when did you start using drugs?
Around about the age of, I would say 13.
So you started using drugs at the age of 13.
Yes, sir.
What was your drug of choice?
Marijuana.
Did you graduate to anything stronger than marijuana?
Yes, sir. Cocaine.
And how long did you use drugs?
I'm all together because I was in and out of prison and jail. I would say basically roughly 3 to 4 years of my life.
Oh, you're a drug addict, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
So what have you done to treat and to take care of the drug addiction that you acquired at the age of 13?
Beg your pardon? I didn't hear you.
What programs have you completed that will help you to control your need for drugs and alcohol?
Substance abuse. I was in
Okay.
AA, sir.
Which program?
Substance abuse, living in banners, AA, and just, I've been here 26 years, like you said, and I don't have no desire for no drugs, and I don't be around them, and you know what I'm saying? There's plenty of drugs around prison, but that's my downfall in life. So I have learned older I got, the more I learned about drugs and my downfall in my life. My only problem has been was drugs. Drugs led me to do the things that I've done in life. So other than that, I mean, just staying away from it.
Let me help you out a little bit, Mr. Lewis. You completed anger management. You completed substance abuse, thinking for a change, living in balance, parts 1 and 2, 100 hours pre-release. Any other programs?
Any other programs?
Yeah,
Was
besides the ones I just mentioned.
no, sir.
How about faith-based programs?
No, sir. No, sir. I'm a member of a church now, but no, sir. Other than that, no, sir.
Tell us about your transition plan. I see your initial transition plan is the Louisiana Pro Project. And your permanent plan is with Miss Veronica Lewis on Patrick Street in Slidell, your sister. So tell me, how do you plan to work your transition back into society?
My plans, sir,
Go ahead.
my plans is to go out and I talked to my sister Veronica about helping me get started, give me a truck. And I want to drive trucks on the street, sir. And with their support, I got friends that's willing to help me get started driving trucks and show me the ins and outs of getting hooked up in the truck world. That's part of my plans. I want to get out there and just support my family the best that I can, take care of my brother. Got a handicapped brother out there that's struggling and kids and grandkids that need my help. And I'm just asking for the opportunity to get out there to help them.
Okay, first of all, initial transition plan is with the Louisiana Pro Project. Tell me about that.
My initial plan with the Louisiana Parole Project, well, I figured they could help me get situated and, point me in the right direction that I need to be pointed in to get started in life. So, I mean, if whatever that would help me, I choose it. You know what I'm saying? I accept it. I accept the help that the Parole Project Board is willing to offer me.
Okay. And you have an employment plan with your sister at Veronica One Stop Shop. What is that?
It's a store, sir. A store, well, she sells all kind of stuff in the store, clothes, shoes, hair products, and stuff like that.
Will you be employed by your sister?
Yes, sir.
You just told me you want to be a truck driver.
But I'm talking about I got to start somewhere to get to the truck. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I don't have the money to go buy no truck. So if she can help me out to get me there, yes, sir. That's my plan, sir.
Your contact, you have 10 or 12 disciplinary write-ups and 26 years of incarceration. That's not bad. The last two write-ups was in April of 2013, 10 years ago. You had one write-up for defiance and one write-up for aggravated disobedience. You were sent to the max working cell block, so they had to be serious. So tell me exactly what you did to warrant the maximum cell block.
The lady was searching me down, like she said. She called me to shake me down, and she felt something hard on me, she said, and what she did. And what had happened, I fell in a hard time and I needed to make a phone call. So I asked a friend could hook me up with a phone where I can make a call. And he gave me a phone. I never got a chance to make the call because as soon as he gave it to me, I guess she must have saw it. And she called me and shook me down. And I just walked away and flushed the cell phone. That's what happened, son.
You didn't get right up for contraband. You got to write up for defiance and aggravated disobedience.
I don't know. I guess that's just the way they put it. I don't know how, in here, I don't know where the define come from, aggravated disobedience.
For name vote?
Yeah, so the lady shook him down and she felt something hard and square on him. And when she asked him to remove it, he gave her a cigarette lighter. And then she felt the object again. It was still there. So when she asked him to remove it the second time, he refused and he headed for the door. So he got away from her. She said she tried to stop him, but he would not comply. So she hit the beep and watched him run into Cypress Street Dawn where he was found. Never said they found a cell phone on him. So she wrote him up for aggravated disobedience and defiance. And that's both for not following the orders and refusing to stop and comply.
Thank you, Warden. Mr. Lewis,
Yes, sir.
when I ask you a question, I expect to get the whole truth. And you just told me something that wasn't true.
What that was?
That you ran from the officer. You didn't follow orders. And she didn't find a cell phone.
No, she didn't find no cell phone. So I said I walked in the dome and threw it away. And that's what happened.
But why did you defy the officer and run away so that she couldn't find a cell phone?
I didn't hear you, sir. Could you repeat that for me, please?
Why did you defy the officer, run away so she couldn't find a cell phone?
Shoot, for one, I didn't want to get busted with no phone. I had never had no phone in my possession, didn't know nothing about it. I didn't want that trouble. So I still wind up with a charge, and like you said, they don't really know why I ran, but I just told it to y'all, to the board, because I wanted to be honest. I'm speaking the truth. So they didn't really know why I ran. All she could say was she felt something hard, but the reason why I did walk away was because of the phone. So, and I didn't want to get caught with the phone.
Thank you. Warden Ambo, do you have any comments? Do you have any comments, concerns, or remarks?
Yes, sir. You want to find out when he became a minimum 8. He actually been a minimum 8 since 2021. And actually, I take that back. He been a minimum 8 since 2005. It was taken away from him for 2 reports that he went to max for, and he regained it back he regained his minimum status back in 2014 as a minimum C. And then he went from a C to a B and back to an A in 2021.
Sorry.
And go ahead.
Trustee was taken away because of those 2 write-ups we were just talking about.
Yes, sir. And just to add to what he was saying, he does drive a flatbed truck, and also he has a golf cart available to his disposal whenever he's delivering and stuff. So he's trusted around the camp to drive all around the camp in a flatbed truck. I think it's a 2,500 ton truck that he rides around in. He does a lot of things for any of the wards, anybody that asks him to do stuff. He also volunteers in death row when we have activities in death row for the death row offenders. He's there to help serve the food and clean up behind the offenders when we do things back there. And he's a trustee in Camp F, which is the only camp that gate is left open until dawn. So they're free to roam in and out all day until the sun go down.
Warden Ambo, your information was valuable. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, sir.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes, sir.
and looking at your information, regardless of what the outcome today is, I'd like to encourage you to enroll in the GED program. I know you're up in age, but you need to think about enrolling in the GED program so you can get that GED. You need to start working towards a high school diploma. You need to enroll in additional good time classes, because you hadn't taken that many good time classes. And you need to stay away from the write-ups. Regardless of what happens, I want you to think and enroll in those classes in GED and just stay away from the write-ups and the cell phones.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chairman, I do have a recommendation in this case, and I will share with my fellow board members at the conclusion of this interview.
Thank you, Mr. O'Shea. I don't see any other questions, so can we hear from the Parole Project?
Yes, good afternoon. Kerry Myers with Louisiana Parole Project. Just to let you know that we're here to support Mr. Lewis in his transition should this board grant him relief today. Mr. Lewis has been incarcerated for 27 years. His last disciplinary infraction was 10 years ago. Since that time, he's earned his trustee status back. He's earned a trusted position at Camp F. He's driving a truck. He's also an orderly in the medical clinic. He has completed victim awareness and thinking for a change, living in balance 1 and 2, and anger management. Mr. Lewis has got multiple letters of recommendation from his supervisors. He continues to do the right things. We believe he has an excellent transition plan once he finishes the Parole Project. He will go, he has an employment waiting and residence waiting with his family. While he's with us, we'll assist him. We'll make sure he's connected to the services. We'll make sure he goes through, he'll get an evaluation by our social worker and follow any of those recommendations. He'll have programming and case management, in financial management and planning, in social norms. He'll essentially receive the services he needs after 27 years of incarceration, coming into a world that's significantly different from the one he left. There'll be no rush for Mr. Lewis to complete the program. We want to make sure that when he does leave us, he is absolutely prepared to move forward. Based on all these things. The other thing is Mr. Lewis, the support that he has, not only from the institution, but from Parole Project and his family, I think is significant based on his age at 62 years old. Lewis is at a time where he can continue to work, at least for a few years. He'll be sustained by his family. This is the perfect time for Mr. Lewis to get this opportunity. So we just ask this board commute his sentence today.
Thank you. Mr. Tubbs. Good afternoon. We'd like to hear from you now. Yeah, we'd like to hear from you now. You want to share some information with us? You're on mute. Your microphone's on mute. There you go. Now we can hear you.
Yes, ma'am. I've known Robert Lewis for the whole time he was at Angola. I retired from Angola as assistant warden at Camp F, and he used to work for me when I was a warden at Camp F. And he showed me a letter to where we was talking earlier about the fellow he was supposed to ride for his jacket and didn't respond. He had a letter saying that he didn't steal it, wrote from Stefan, but only had his signature on it the first time he went on the board. So I tried to help him assist him, I feel like he could be good in society. He's been in my house, he's been working for me, and we got in touch with a parole officer, the inmate's probation officer, and I sent him a letter and asked him to get Stefan, if he wrote that, to sign it. Because the first time I just had his first name, not his whole name. He signed his date of birth, saying it was him, his name. The probation officer signed it, put his badge number on it, stating that he said Robert stole the jacket, tried to keep him getting time himself. And Robert should have that with him. And I would just like for him to get another chance to be with his family and the world, because he's not a bad individual. And I would like to support him getting out. I don't know nothing else I can say for him, but, I'd like to see him fishing.
We do have the letter she referenced from Stefan James, also signed by Aaron Brock, I believe it is. So we appreciate you providing that information. And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll hear from Mr. Clark from the DA's office.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I've already submitted one letter to the board, I think with some exhibits and whatnot, just to briefly touch upon that letter. In this case, Mr. Lewis has yet to accept any responsibility for the robbery in this case. I think that was indicated by his comments again today, where again, he basically will make no admission to the fact that he did in fact commit a robbery. I do understand a letter was submitted by the victim in this case, where this is purported to be a recantation on the part of the victim in this case. However, I would like to note that on the two separate occasions that the victim in this case was under oath, he testified on both occasions that Mr. Lewis did in fact rob him. This alleged recantation first came up at a basis as a motion for new trial, at which point the victim was called to testify, was specifically asked these questions again, in which he testified under oath that this robbery did in fact occur. I'm not sure exactly where the recantations are now coming from, but every sworn statement that the victim has given has indicated that Mr. Lewis did in fact commit this robbery. State also notes the issue with no vocational training nor GED on the part of Mr. Lewis. And with that, state would oppose any clemency.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Lewis,
That's
before
ma'am.
we turn it over to Ms. Mudd, is there a statement you'd like to make to the board?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to apologize to the victim, to the family, to my family, and I'm remorseful for this crime. And I'm asking the board to give me another chance to get out there to be with my family and to see my grandbabies, get a chance to spend some time with my kids and my grandkids.
Thank you. Ms. Mudd?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I wanted to clarify, first of all, a few things that were said in the beginning. I think there was some confusion about what the actual crime was and who the actual victim was. I wanted to make clear, first of all, there was never an accusation that Mr. Lewis robbed a store. The accusation in this case, and the reason I attached the transcript to the 77-page packet that I submitted to the board, was so that the board could be aware of what the victim actually testified to in the beginning at the trial. So that is what he's accused of, is essentially robbing Stefan James of a coat and attempting to rob him of a jacket. What Mr. Lewis was talking about in the beginning about going into the store was a shoplifting that he and the victim were attempting to commit together. And that was part of this whole scenario. That was part of what had happened that day. So I wanted to clarify, just to make sure that the board doesn't think that there was any sort of robbery of a store. It sounds like what Mr. Lewis was saying was that they were shoplifting there before the rest of this transpired. So I wanted to clear that up first of all. I also wanted to note in further about the letter from Stefan James, who is the victim who testified in this case. I wanted to make sure that the board had all of the information about that letter. It was first submitted to the board when he went up for parole in 2017. And as Mr. Tubbs testified, at that time, it only had the signature of Stefan James on it. No one knew where this letter came from. And that's when Mr. Tubbs assisted Mr. Lewis in going to validate this letter. So he went to, at the time, it was the victim's parole officer. That parole officer gave the letter to a different parole officer to ask him to sign it. That was Aaron Brock. I actually did follow up and I spoke with Mr. Brock, who said that yes, the victim did come in Stephon James did come in and he told him that he wrote that letter. So we've got, all the way down to the parole officer. I did verify that before I put that in the packet. So I wanted to be clear about where that was coming from as well. In addition, I'm not sure that, Mr. Lewis tooted his own horn quite as much as he should have about the programs. We've got 14 certificates that are all listed in his packet, ranging from things that he's done from 2009 all the way through to 2023. And that includes, the big ones here. There's little things he's done here and there. He's been very helpful through the COVID-19 pandemic and things like that. He has certificates for things of that nature. But he's done thinking for a change, counseling on individual community reentry concerns, the 100 hours of pre-release, cage your rage, substance abuse, living in balance, both parts, phase 1 and 2. So I just wanted to make sure that all of those were noted. There are 14 things listed here. He's also got 15 letters of support. But about the GED, I wanted to make clear as well on that he has been trying to get into a GED program. I've attached to the packet as well a couple of letters from the education department. He took the test. Apparently you have to take a test to get into the GED classes. He took that test. He apparently didn't do well on one of the parts. And because of that, he was not admitted into the GED classes. He's had some struggles in school previously. And I think that this is, it is difficult for him, but he's trying. So I wanted to make sure that the board understood that this isn't him just not caring. He has tried, but he wasn't admitted to those GED classes. There's another letter in the board that shows that he is scheduled to retake, it's the TABE test, TABE test, and he is scheduled to retake that test May 17th. So in a couple days here, hopefully he's been studying up. So he will be retaking that test. In regards to the concerns that, I would think that the board might have in this, I'm hoping to address those. Does he present a danger? Would releasing him unduly depreciate the seriousness of the offense? Is there victim opposition? Is he likely to continue to break the law? And does he have the tools to succeed? So at this point in time, he's 62 years old. He's been incarcerated for 26 and a half years, I believe it was. And at this point, even those who work with him in the prison don't believe that there is any longer a need for him to be there. When I spoke with Mr. Tubbs, and he spoke briefly today, but he was telling me about a transformation that he had seen in Mr. Lewis. He spoke about how when he first got there to prison that they had some issues, but then that worked itself out. And as the board has acknowledged, he hasn't had any write-ups at all for 10 years. His Tiger score is low. He's had substance abuse now, which was the root of his problems. He obviously has had, issues in the past. He was committing crimes. He was using drugs. He was stealing, and then all of this added up and we got to where we are today. But for the last 10 years, he's been doing really great. He hasn't had any write-ups. He's done his substance abuse, his 100 hours. His mind has started working differently than it did before. He does have some skills. He may not have gotten any sort of certifications, but he has developed some skills. He's, gotten lots of experience driving the truck now. He also is a builder. He can build things. He's sold items at the rodeo, and he's able to build things and could probably do some carpentry work if that were available to him. In regards to whether it unduly depreciates the seriousness of the offense to release him, this was, every felony is obviously serious, but this was a case with no injury. And so, we would ask that be taken into consideration as well. And if if the board wishes, the transcript is attached to that packet, and you could see, in detail every allegation there was. And I think that in reviewing that, in comparison to some of the things that I think that we hear about, it's on the lower end of the seriousness of the offense. Victim opposition, as we've stated, the victim may not have responded this time around, but back in 2017, the victim wrote the letter. And the reason I attached the letter wasn't even so much about the recantation, so much as it was to show that this victim wishes for Mr. Lewis to be released. And I think that that's more of the point for the purpose of this particular hearing, is that the victim himself does not see any benefit in the continued incarceration of Mr. Lewis. Is he likely to continue to break the law? I think that that question is answered in the same way that the question as to whether he's dangerous is answered, and that is that he's had substance abuse now. He's been clean for a very long time. He has every reason to want to succeed. He has some skills that he didn't have before that would help him in doing so. And he really has tried, even though he doesn't have that GED, as I mentioned, he has made an attempt to secure that. And does he have the tools to succeed? And I think he does. He's got his family support. Veronica and Latasha are both present here. And actually, we were hoping that one of them could speak. He's had, I think, 2 witnesses, but Veronica and Latasha are both online and willing to speak for him, and we're hoping to do so. Veronica, works in the boutique, and she's offered to open her home to him. She would definitely support him. Latasha is very eager for him to be out and to be involved in her children's lives. She's here today, even though she's sick and has a sick child. So she's very eager to see her father return home. Obviously, he's missed a large part of her life as well. And he has potential for employment. I think his ultimate goal is to drive a truck. In the meantime, he would be able to do whatever job he could get, whether that's something that Veronica has set up for him or that someone else has set up. I think that that's not necessarily inconsistent, that he could do some job until he's able to secure the employment that he's really hoping to seek. And I guess, I'll just end it there with, we would just ask that the court or that the board grant him this opportunity, that you commute his sentence to a term of years that would allow him to be eligible for parole. And if either Ms. Lewis or Ms. King could speak, we would appreciate that as well.
Okay, thank you. Well, I do see Ms. Veronica Lewis wants to speak. Ms. Lewis, is there a brief statement you'd like to make to the board before we vote? You're on mute. Can you unmute it?
Okay, Robert Lewis is my dad, and I think I was about 9 years old when he was taken away from me. So I missed out on a lot. He missed out on a lot. And I have 2 children. I have a 16-year-old, almost 17, and I have 11-month-old son that my dad has never seen. And I just would wish the board would grant him have favor and have mercy on him also, and just really let him come home to see his family, his children, and be with us. Excuse me, I'm sick, you guys. I have a cold, so I just want to say that I appreciate you guys for giving them this opportunity to come before the board again, and if you would grant his release. And thank you all for the opportunity. That's all.
You. Board prepared to vote?
Yes,
Mr. Roche.
Madam Chairman, based upon the offender serving 26 and a half years for a non-homicide, non-aggravated rape, non-armed robbery conviction, where the victim was not injured in the process of offense, based on positive remarks by Warden Ambo, a good transition plan. He's completed most of the basic good time classes and an improved disciplinary record. My recommendation is that we recommend to Governor Edwards to commute the sentence to 75 years.
Appreciate it. Mr. Mirabella?
My vote likewise is the same as Mr. Roche for the same reasons.
Mr. Freeman?
Mine also is likewise for the same reason.
Mrs. Jackson? I concur. All right, Mr. Lewis, my vote is also the same. So on your behalf, we'll make the recommendation to the governor that your sentence be commuted. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you, thank you. Thank y'all.
Thank you all.
I'm sorry, I'm just a little. I cannot believe that this man has been rotting in prison for 26 years. You have got to be kidding me. How is that possible? How is it possible that he got a life sentence without the possibility of parole? This is a commutation sentence. He's not yet out of the park. He now has to have the governor sign it. And you just don't know with these things. 26 years. For what seems like, and the attorney did a great job unpacking it because I can't find documents on it. Richard couldn't find. So I have no additional details to share with you. But what really seems to be the case is that him and a buddy went to a store where they shoplifted some beer, and then he stole the guy's jacket. Like Mr. O'Shea said, no one was hurt. Why is it so important for the state to keep this man behind bars? So important that the assistant district attorney shows up to keep him locked up. The amount of money, the amount of resources that they have thrown in this case is just startling. They had 2 sworn testimonies from the victim. He lost a jacket. I could go walk down the street of any major city right now and get my jacket robbed, and I'd have a hard time getting a police to give me a full police report. I had my car broken into, and the police officer never even got out of his car to look if the damage was real because it was on the driver's side, parked on the left side. The police stayed in his car, wrote a report, and that was it. I could tell you it was probably more than the jacket cost. I don't understand what is going on with this case. It's the habitual offender thing. A life sentence without the possibility of parole to the point that he needs to have a commutation of his sentence, to the point that he was actually denied in 2017 for his commutation of sentence? What is going on here? We have seen the most terrible crimes committed and people who have gotten out serving less than 20, much less time. We have seen the worst crimes imaginable. And where the DA doesn't show up. We've seen Brian Clark a few times. One of them, It was when he got in a fight with Miss Jackson over the Vietnam War. If you haven't seen that one, he really loses his cool. Now, I've seen him a few times where I respected what he had to say, and I respect an assistant DA that takes the time to show up. But in this case, this is not justice. This is not protecting your community. This is not. Okay. And you know what? This is that there are so many different cases that when I show it, it's to expose the evil of certain inmates, what they've done to harm people, and what they've done to harm those that can't protect themselves. And then I like to show as well the injustice in the sentences that so many of these what we call cockroaches are given 5-year sentences for completely doing the most horrible things. I'm being cautious with my words because YouTube has gotten nuts lately. You say anything that they call a trigger word, and it's just like they're just not going to show the video to anyone. And that's not the point of this. The point of this is to show the world, look at our court system. We do have people that are rotting away in prison for 26 years where now he needs the governor to sign a commutation. Then he'll get a chance at a parole hearing. And an assistant DA shows up and says, no, he shouldn't get out. He stole a jacket. If they were to have their way, they'd keep him locked up forever. He's 62 years old. You know, the habitual offender thing is just the most ridiculous of bills. And now they're reversing that. But again, this is just how can Brian, the assistant DA, look anyone in the eyes and say, I did a good thing today. I tried to keep this man locked up. Hey, I can agree on a parole project on wanting to support this man at least. So many of their cases, I just don't. His daughter is there. They miss each other's lives because the state felt it was important to keep this man who has no violent offenses, none, locked up for 26 and a half years. We have seen people who've gotten manslaughter and gotten out in 5. Explain that to me. Anyways, this is why I do this, because if I just told you that this happened, you wouldn't believe me. You would say, no, there has to be something you're not sharing. You're just saying stuff. But no, this is for the world to see. This is now on the internet for the world to see. Please do the algorithm thing to help others see what it is that we're sharing with the world. And with that, I will let you go.